So I have with me a many time over past guest Damien Chung, who is the BISO at Netscope. Welcome back, Damien.
Hi, Ashwin. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back. And we're going to touch upon a topic which is related to cybersecurity, but it brings in a different perspective, different lens, which is really the diversity aspect, right? And particularly, I think, as we were talking about earlier, as you have started building your team across multiple geographies, multiple continents, and different demographics, I mean, what have been some of your own learnings as it relates to how do you make diversity happen? Goes back to an Adam Grant phrase that just sticks to me, right? Which is diversity is good, but it isn't easy, right? So, what are some of the learnings that you've had as you've gone down this path to kind of make your team more inclusive?
I think it's just the first definition of diversity. So for us, diversity in who a person is, maybe on the outside, but also on the inside. Um, just security alone, we want to have different ways of thinking, right? Because if we all thought the same way, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to have that diverse mindset. So to me, the diversity is all about, who the person is, how their mindset is, and trying to broaden that within our teams has been, something we wanted to do and something we know we have to do. But like you said, there's a challenge, right? Because it's not easy to really categorize different types of diversity. I mean, it's easy to do it based on race or gender, and those sorts of things. And I think, yes, those are definitely important. But what's more important is the diversity of the person from within and their thoughts and their mindset as they approach in security in our case, right?
And just expanding upon that, and like we were chatting about earlier, right, which I found really fascinating, which is the aspect of making people not just talk about work related stuff but beyond, especially in this hybrid environment or remote work environment. And you mentioned something about food, and I want you to kind of talk about that just as a means for, again, back to your point about how do you get the person inside start to share more of themselves.
Well, I think food is one of those things that draws a lot of people together. And so, I have different tastes in food, just like you may have different tastes in food. What you eat every evening might differ from what I eat every evening, right? So there's diversity there. And I always like to have that conversation about food because it tells you a lot about the person and how they differ from you. So much so that, I do my own food podcasts and we explore different types of food. And we kind of want to bring attention to, different genres or different cultures through food. So I think that's very important to, even the conversation when it comes to the workplace is just really being understanding that everyone's different, and I use food as, my basis to try to drive conversation and try to understand people. But there's other things. It doesn't have to be food. It could be traditions in the home or within the community. They all differ. I know, right, even right across the United States, we have different traditions, even different accents, right? So it's always a great topic to have those conversations because now you can look at diversity in a in different manner as well.
Yeah, so talking about something that on the not so easy part, right? And you mentioned about having people with different diverse mindsets. And one of my past guests, and she mentioned something which kind of stuck in my head, which is she said, I mean, yeah, let's say you have a half-hour meeting, with you need to have a 15-minute buffer if you want to actually encourage people who are otherwise introverted or otherwise feel that they're not part of the mold and therefore refrain from opening up. And I think that is part of the not so easy part, right? Because we're all trying to kind of get to our deadlines and get to the next meeting or get some work done. And here we
Yeah.
have an extra 15 minutes, right? Just for that. So talk a little bit about your experiences when it comes to how does the not so easy part actually become muscle memory so people actually don't look at it as, oh, it's a top
Yeah, no,
down mandate.
no, that's hard, right? Because we're with the whole remote working, we kind of just hop between meetings
Yeah.
to meetings with very little time in between. Sometimes I can't even take a bathroom break because I have to be on the next meeting. And so these little small talk is kind of disappearing. Usually you can stop by somebody's desk or you
Yeah.
can meet for lunch and have those conversations. But these days, how many people actually getting time to take lunch breaks. I try to find within my team meetings, at least, if there's an extra 5 minutes, we start to talk about some of these small talk, what's going on in your lives, so I do have a daily stand-up call with my team. They go through everything they need to go through for the day or previous day. And if there's time left over, we don't just hang up, we stay on, and I'll tell them, I'd like to start telling them about me first, and hope that they will open up, right? I don't want it to turn into an interrogation or an interview. It's more, try to be more of a conversation piece about what's going on in your life, and how that may be the same or different from things happening within my life too, right? Because even across our country, we have different mandates when it comes to what's happening with COVID, right? There's some states where you still need to wear masks everywhere, and there's some states where those rules are non-existent. And so we like to compare those across our team and just talk about them and how it impacts, how we do our work or how we go out with our personal lives. So yeah, I think trying to have the conversation around diversity is challenging, especially since we are so faced with, back-to-back meetings online and not having the actual face-to-face interactions like we normally do.
Yeah, one final question. This is something I know both you and Lamont and Netscope in general is a big proponent of, which is going to these colleges and hiring at that level and being able to impart awareness of cybersecurity. So talk a little bit about how that has helped. I know you've had great success in terms of converting some of those internships into employees, but what are the other learnings as it comes to the next generation of leaders and how Netscope is helping?
So I think that's where diversity really we're starting to see it change, right? We never used to see females, for example, in our industry, and now we're seeing slowly growth. And I will never say we're going to be on parity, but hopefully one day we'll get there. So trying to promote that within, whether it's the gender gap, or if it's a gap within just the way we look at or the way we host interns from different backgrounds, right? You may be working with a college that has a very high tuition rate, and not everybody can afford that either. And so when we're looking for backgrounds of candidates to come through our internship program, we're looking for that diversity, right? It's not about entitlement because you went to a certain school, or you're at a certain level, or your family has a certain level of income. It's really about your experiences. And sometimes, we want to be able to focus on really cultures that we just don't have, or backgrounds we don't have today represented within our team. And like I said, back to what I said in the beginning, is that because the mindset is different, hopefully the mindset is different. We don't want everybody to think the same. We don't want everyone to have the same experiences. If they have different backgrounds and different mindsets, then we can think outside the box and be even better, more efficient when it comes to that. So in our programs, as we work through different colleges and universities, that is also something that we talk about, is the diversity of the thinking even between their classmates. Just because somebody thinks differently doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because they do something differently doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a different way to do things, and we embrace that, right? Because that's what makes us special, and that's what makes us think of different ways to do things, and maybe we'll find the right way and the more efficient way to do it through that approach.
Yeah, and it's also interesting the learnings that people who otherwise may not have had, just having these diverse multicultural opportunities for newcomers coming in, and there's so much learning we can get from them also, right? So there's added benefit.
And I'll tell you the story. I had one of our first interns, and I won't give his name, but hopefully he sees this. Every time I take him out for lunch to have our one-on-ones, he would always order a hamburger, and he only eats hamburgers. So we did try to expand his palate a little bit, and introduced him to Indian food, to Chinese food, other stuff that he could try. And he's open to it. Like, he's open to trying it, but we still joke about every time we see him in person if he's eating a hamburger again that day or not. But but just having the open mindset, because yeah, maybe you're used to eating those hamburgers every day, but there's a whole other world of flavors, and that's the same thing when it comes to us as people and our cultures.
Awesome. And again, thanks, Damon, for everything that you're doing and the broad initiative that Netscope is pursuing when it comes to diversity. And good luck, and hopefully we'll catch up soon in a future episode.
All right. Thanks, Ashwin.
Thank you.